Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. And I'm not sure what's going on with this camera. It's not all that pretty, is it? Let me just kind of fix that up here for a second, if I can. I'm going to see if I can fix this and make it a little bit easier to see me because we have too much light coming into the camera. But let's talk about something. The biggest car news since we've heard from 2020, and I want to talk about that because there's some great things coming down the chute, if you will. And I really just wanted to get together with all of you and say, hey, welcome back. There's a few things I want to throw out there, a few greetings, but I wanted to just get together and have a conversation about some of the biggest news in the car industry since 2020. It's amazing. With that said, I've created a new membership tab. Of course, a lot of you, there's many of you who have been members for a while, and I really, really thank you very, very much. That said, I want to build up sort of an additional community. I mean, we have a wonderful community here who loves the content, who enjoys the content that I create week in, week out regarding, reliability and depreciation and the best cars to buy and the worst cars to avoid. But there's going to be some great new reveals. And certainly you want to be in the membership program because you get emojis, you get first dibs on responses for answers and questions. But on top of it, I've got a whole plethora of videos, supercar videos, because, a lot of the OGs of the channel know that I really love the exotics. I love my supercars, fun cars, fast cars, cute cars, aggressive cars. And guess what? I'm putting that all in a place where those that really know where to go to find it can find it easily because the channel's got over a thousand videos now, and it's quite often hard to find some of the old content. It's buried so deep down in the deep archives. But if you're looking to see my Lamborghini, we've got Pantera projects, we've got Aventador drives, point of views, track times. We've got all kinds of track times from several years ago, and really archived content. And a lot of you are going to really enjoy it. Um, but I'm just encouraging you all, if you can, join the membership program. Of course, there's a link down pretty much on the channel. Just about everywhere I've got a link to join up in the membership program. Please do support the channel. That'd be absolutely amazing. But before we get to that, or before we continue on, I want to talk about, thanks so much, everybody, for the great year it's been. And I will probably dial in again here one more time before the year is up. But there's some big news coming down the chute. And I wanted to touch on a few of those items because hopefully a lot of you are probably going to find it's pretty impressive. Now, is anybody there? I haven't seen a comment. Again, I'm going to say good afternoon. Yeah, so there we go. So I want to bring to light some big news with ECPP, Exotic Car Play Place. It's gonna be a strong focus on delivering the very detailed content that you're looking for. If you're looking for the best and the worst cars, engines, transmissions, the things to avoid and the things to watch for, I'm going to be providing that ongoing. 2026 looks to be a smashing year, and I really do hope to bring, or that's the plan, to bring a lot of content. I'm going to do a lot more detail, and certainly I'm going to up the game on quality. But beyond that, I want to let you all know that I am making some improvements and enhancements to the overall quality of the channel. Certainly on audio quality and some mechanical and some changes that I knew have been waiting in the wings for a while and needed. But I do want to mention that there will be some changes coming this year in the channel. We're going to continue on, but it's going to be very intriguing. So what do you think about the 2012 Mercedes GLK 350 with a naturally aspirated V6? I think any of those are good from that generation. I mean, it's a Mercedes, they're complicated cars. That said, if you find a car that's been serviced, and a lot of those cars were from original owners, people that cared and loved for their cars, I would say it's definitely worthwhile. Um, that's great news. Your content is priceless. So I appreciate that. No, that really does mean a lot. And I do want to keep delivering, but even raise the bar if I can for the quality and the detail that you've been expecting from ECPP. I don't glaze over like this AI nonsense. And the AI is having an impact on a lot of content creators, as a lot of you have probably been hearing. it's pushing a lot of the good content creators off to the side while the AI seems to be flooding the market right now. So right now, it's quite often hard to discern sometimes from these faceless AI channels and the real legitimate channels, the OGs, the people that actually have a passion for the cars and not just a money printing machine. So that being said, lots of great content coming up. I do want to wish everybody happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and beyond. Of course, New Year's as we roll into that right away. It's going to be an exciting year. I know 26 is shaping up to be something special. Mercedes Benz is crapola, short, sweet, and to the point. It's funny you say that, and I'm going to be talking about this. So, again, into the space because I recognize that a lot of you, and I look at the analytics on my channel, and it's pretty clear to me that when I put out a content regarding, our experiences with the Mercedes, the Porsche, and some of the other vehicles that I personally owned, recently it feels like not a lot of love on those videos, and that's fair, right? Not everybody cares about the woes and the issues that we've had with our Mercedes Benz. That being said, that's why I'm going to put those kind of content, and there's going to be a lot of amazing content like that in the membership tab. So if you want to be really be privy to all that detailed info on my own personal experiences for the cars that I love to drive and own. Definitely want to check the membership tab because it appears that the vast majority of the viewers on ECPP would much rather just hear about, they want to understand the good cars, the bad cars, those vehicles that they're best to avoid and vehicles that are certainly worth it. And so I do want to make sure that I'm giving you the dance floor, if you will, to come over and join the membership group and community of ECPP, where it doesn't inundate everybody because not everybody cares about Ferraris and Lambos, but a lot of you do. And so I'm providing that very detailed, specific type content, my own personal experience on that side. So if you want to be part of that, if you want to experience what I'm going through, some of our woes and ups and downs, I'm going to be doing a lot more of that on the membership tab. I've got a whole pile of videos I've just put in there here just recently, and I would strongly encourage any of you that want to be part of that, join the membership. Again, you get your own special emoji. There's some of your comments. I'll be sure to be able to get to those and answer those toot sweet. So there's other benefits, but you also get first dibs on seeing some of this content. You're the first to be aware and made note of what's coming down the chute. So anyway, thanks. Enough about that kind of stuff. Ahmed, thanks for joining in. Welcome to Life is Too Short. You betcha. Thanks so much. Good evening, Mark. And yeah, thanks so much for joining in, Ahmed. I really do appreciate it. We also have a comment here. Thanks for your videos on the Lexus vehicles. Avoid found it very insightful. Been a Lexus owner for many years. Keep up the awesome work. I do appreciate that. And I seems like I go all in or all out. And I'll create a video about the best and then I'll create a video about the worst. And some people, not everybody takes it the same way. If I create a negative video about the product, everybody thinks I'm getting on the wagon of I'm a hater. Not at all. I think Lexus is one of the best brands out there. I mean, bar none right now. There are problems, but every brand seems to be fighting off problems right now. That said, there are still some amazing cars, and I think Lexus is certainly one of the best of them. So, no, thanks, and I'm glad I was able to help out with that. I believe the older Mercedes were great cars. Nowadays, they're skimping on everything. That seems to be the way. Mercedes-Benz, from our own take, you remember how last year and the year before we were dealing with those dealer issues with all of a sudden having glitches and gremlins and all of a sudden lights, faults and codes and your left blinker that and rear light that and sensing monitoring, and we get all these codes. Well, guess what? It's back. And so we've got more of those problems. And I'm going to expand on that here in some of the membership content. And I'm going to create videos around that. But I don't necessarily want to populate the rest of the content, the rest of the mainstream video channel with that type of content, because I know most of you probably don't care all that much. There's some that do. And I will from time to time drop summaries and I will give updates, in the public arena, so to speak. I will, but I think the frequent changes, the little changes, the day-to-day, the things that are going on regularly, I promise to share more of that on the membership side. So I'm not boring you guys with content that isn't necessarily what you're looking for. So, Yeah, and I do agree, Ramon. I do agree that the newer Mercedes Benz just feels like not what they used to be. I remember my first experience was a 190E. I was working for a Toyota dealership here in the city many years ago. I worked for Toyota, and they had a used Mercedes that showed up on the lot, and it was a 190. And I just remember like there was something about it. It was basic, but yet it was, like, robust. It felt, like, sturdy, and the doors clunk, and you hear this clink when the doors close. It felt like a tank. I loved it, and I knew there was something unique about Benz way back then, the 190s and the 300Es, and I experienced those back way back in the day, early in my experience with the automotive space. But I knew they were special. But interestingly enough, they've started to shift, and it seems like the late 90s where they started manufacturing, like in Alabama, some parts in the US, and they started putting a lot of cheap plastic in there. They still had a lot of good engines, the 5-liter V8s and things, but the problem is you could feel there was cost cutting. And I had a couple. I had an ML 500. You could feel the cost cutting. Sunroofs jammed up, window regulators would fail. We had plastic. We had, I opened up I think it was an ashtray, the cup holder at the back, and it blew apart. There was parts that just came apart. It's just flimsy. So yeah, it's not what it used to be. I agree with you totally. No, thanks, Ramon. I appreciate that. Last night, a train of low orbit satellites or drones passed over central Minnesota at 4 a.m. Today, my vehicles failed to start. Not the coldest it's been either. That's interesting. Yeah, I'd like to kind of hear more about that. A 1984 Mazda B2000 pickup was 57.95 new. I know, right? Right? Like, what are these prices? I mean, how did we get to this place where these vehicle prices are what they're at? It's kind of blowing my mind. But again, hey, if you're new and you just joined in, be sure to hit the membership program because I'm going to be sharing. There's a lot of exotic car content: Gallardo, Pantera, Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini. Porsche 918 Spiders, a little content in there. Lamborghini Aventador and Huracan. There's touches of everything in there. You're gonna love it. So you want to check that out. The 20-plus-year-old RX 330 still a reasonable buy today? Reasonable in the sense of, yeah, I mean, if you get one that's looked after and the mileage isn't excessively high, it's all just comes down to kind of the cost versus, mileage and condition and all of that. But absolutely, those are great vehicles. I mean, they're a little bit older now, but find one that's been loved and looked after by previous owners and have good records and turn the key, start it, take it for a spin around the block. Does it shift nicely, forward, back? Does it turn without clunking and clicking? Does the engine have any weird noises? If none of the above, you're good to go. That's the way I see it. Negotiate a good price. That's a good vehicle, 100%. Because what we're seeing today are cars that aren't built like they used to be. I hate to say it, even a lot of the Lexus these days, they're pretty inside, but some of them just aren't built. The RX has had a series of problems. The RZ, the EVs as well, have had a lot of weird electrical problems, and quality just doesn't seem to be totally there. So the RZ isn't one that I would recommend. Neither would I recommend the GX or LX right now because of those engine problems. But yeah, some of those older Lexuses, any of the NAV6s, go with a 350 RX 350 would be absolutely just, you get with like say in 2020 or something or 2018. That's an absolute bulletproof vehicle. So, what I wanted to touch on, obviously, stepping up quality in the new year, things are going to change a little bit for the better. That's the plan. And like I said, you're going to hear better audio quality. I'm working on hardware equipment updates, and you're going to hear better things there. Bruh, just got my third 128i 52 service records. Sweet. Nicely done. Swarm Finder. Good stuff. Yeah, those are fun cars. Eric said is 20 RX 330. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, good job. I say that's overall like that's a fun little car. And that's what I mean. A lot of those sadly are going away, and now like even the 2 series that you're finding in the BMW world now, like the Grand Coupe 2 series are like front wheel drive platform, ace and transmission, kind of like is almost more of a Japanese car, if you will. So it's sort of lost its German vibe. It's not a terribly unreliable car, but it's not necessarily the best. I like the old school, the old chassis 2 series with the rear-wheel drive, and the 1 series, of course, are fun little gems. If I change from CRV, it will be to an RX 350. Oh, absolutely. That's a huge upgrade. CRV, I don't know which engine you've got. I mean, the 1.5 turbos and the Touring, they've had their problems. But the RX 350, man, that's a gem with that V6. So yeah, I would definitely get behind that. But have you heard some of the news? Some of the news lately. Have you heard the latest from Nissan? Nissan's been going the swirl of toiletry, with some of the quality CVTs. There's been some problems there, no secret. But it feels like they're really trying to dig themselves out. Now, they've got this big recall with the VC engines and their Rogues and the Muranos, and some of these, they've had some problems. No secrets there. But they're all trying to dig out. I mean, they're trying to do some interesting thing. I still think the Frontier is one of the better, smaller trucks out there. Did you hear about the latest news? The Nismo Z Fairlady style thing, that they're coming out with? To this point, it was only an automatic. But guess what? They're going to step up their game and they're going to create a Nismo version of the Z car that's going to be a manual. Yes, that's the greatest news for Nissan coming up here, in 2026. That's an amazing piece of news we're talking about. So that'll be a fun car. And everybody knows, some of the best driving experience comes with a manual, pulling your own gears. So that should be a lot of fun. There's a piece of news. Last week I talked about Toyota and some of their, the GR-GT, GTR, and all of those. I'm not going to get on, but it's clearly Toyota's trying to really push their GR series. Like they really are creating a lot of cool cars these days, and they're focusing more on, the performance side of the game. Zone Television. Hey, Mark. Hey, how's it going? Glad to have you in. So appreciate you stopping by. But there clearly is a bit of a turn in the tide, and that's what I kind of want to talk about. Some of the big news. Swarm Finder says, if only Alfa Romeo made a coupe with a V6. I love Alfa. I do. I know they get a bum rap sometimes. The 4C or 12C, you know what, their little sporty little car. I like even some of their older, the Spiders. Sorry. And I definitely love a lot of their products. The Giulia Quadrifoglio and the Stelvio Quad. The quad vehicles are just so much fun. I love them. Most younger people don't have a clue how to drive a manual. Laugh out loud. Max swear says, yeah, I think it seems to be a dying thing. It's careful what you ask for. We're asking for manuals and they sell them and nobody buys them. Everybody prefers the manuals or the autos because they're easy. But I'm old school. I like stick shift and it's sometimes if your daily commute looks like a lot of stop and go, I mean, it's nice to go DCT or autos and that. But really, if it's a car that's more of the driving fun, more of the Saturday driver, and more of the toy, definitely I'd recommend the manual all day. What do we have here? Zone, how do you like the SLK 55 AMG? Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. If I can only find one. I know you guys have been asking about that. I'd love to be able to find something with the old AMG 55s, anything actually, because I think that's one of their best drives. That's one of their best, most exciting cars. So I would give that a green light for sure. Ahmed says, I still think it's going to be hard to convince people to buy a $300,000 Toyota, no matter how awesome it might be. Yeah, it's branding, right? It's a branding issue. 300 grand for a Ferrari or 300 grand for a Toyota. I don't know. Those that have that 300 grand are going to say, no, I'm good. So it's hard to say how that plays out. We'll see. Joe Martin says, my father had a 71 240Z inline 6 manual choke on dual carbs. Oh yeah. A very neat little rig it was. Those are awesome. I love that. 240, 260, 280, 300s. All of those generational Z cars were amazing. I had an old 280Z. I want to say it was an 81. And it wasn't the 2+2, because remember the 2+2 was a little weird. It had that extra little extension kind of hump at the back. It was a little longer. Kind of looked a little bit awkward. I had a regular 280Z, and it was a manual, and I love that car. So yeah, good on your father for sure. Like, those are cool cars, all of them. They are such gems. You don't see many of those around, but the odd time one comes out of the woodwork here and there for a car show or something. Zone says, "I had a '73 240Z in high school." Yeah, now you look back, it's like, some of those cars, they were affordable back then. Now you try to find one that's restored and clean, you pay, like, crazy dollars for it. Which brings me to the next part of news that I want to mention for today, and the simple fact that big announcements recently by some of the OEMs and sort of the deferral of going EV a little bit, right? You've probably heard some of the news, and I'll expand on that in a sec. Oh, and for anybody who dropping in late here, again, feel free to go to the membership tab and join the membership community. I know I'm kind of pumping that up a little bit. I just want you all to be aware of the opportunity for you to go in there and explore some of the great OG supercar content because life's too short to drive boring cars. You know what? I've said this before. You're going to see a lot of new content for supercar content. You're going to see all the new stuff, some of the OG stuff, Aventadors, Mercedes, Ferraris, Huracans, McLarens. I mean, Porsche, Pantera. Remember Di Tommaso? I have content there too. You're gonna want to head on over there. Honestly, if you like that stuff, you want to see kind of my take on some of this, my personal experiences and observations. I've got a ton of content my stuff. You're gonna love it. None of this AI junk floating around there. Yeah, it's cost prohibitive, and there's no infrastructure that can sustain all the electrics. See, that's the thing, right? So now you probably heard Ford is saying, "Screw it, we're scrapping the F-150 Lightning. Screw it, they're done." Now they said they might get some kind of range, some kind of an extendo dealio, the extendo. Um, to get you 700 miles on some new variation of some F-150 that might come out in a couple of years. But the current generation, what we see and know today, is gone. They're scrapping it. It's over. It kind of sucks for those that bought into that and those people that are wheeling around in those now. I mean, good luck. I don't even know like what the scoop is now, what to say. But hey, early adopters got fucked in a lot of ways. Sorry, pardon my, but that's just passionate for me. How they were really pushing people to kind of dive bomb into this and take on these early adoptions of this new technology, which clearly is not what the buyer in general wants. Um, Seems like the powers that be don't want people owning cars. Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of debate around that, and I mean, I think let's put it this way. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. Like, I see it like this: all these big players, Chevy, Ford, Mercedes, Porsche, BMW, it doesn't matter. You can name them all. There's 40 of them, 50 of them. They're business and they're big business and they make billions of dollars every year. It employs people, it generates revenue, it creates tax dollars for the governments and beyond. For me personally, I don't know if that's necessarily the thought process I have. I believe that there's always going to be a place for these retailers selling vehicles. The balance, of course, is affordability, and they're always trying to ride that line and push the limits of what customers are willing to pay. I think that piece is just greasy. I don't think they necessarily want to stop people from driving. I mean, at the end of the day, there's that whole conversation about who's who in the zoo and who really pulls the strings. Whatever. The bottom line is there's way too much money, way too much power and stroke, and way too much to be gained from all these companies selling products, harvesting cars essentially, right? So I don't know. I think there's going to be a long-standing future, but it's just what does that future look like? And what we're seeing with Ford now, they've openly admitted, the CEO has said that he said no more of these big ultra, power hungry EVs. They want to go down to something smaller, more hybrids, more smaller vehicles. As a matter of fact, they've recognized, I believe it was 30% of their sales this last year were pretty much hybrids or some sort of electrification, but they know the Lightnings weren't selling. They had to push them out the door with like $20,000-$30,000 discounts. The Mustang Mach-E's were kind of selling okay, but I mean, those were, they're a little smaller, they're a little easier to live with. The expectation isn't doing a lot of work. They kind of fit the space of any other little SUV. The bigger question is range, plug-in, infrastructure. Those are all problems. I agree. And so now what they're starting to see at the bigger players are loosening the strings. And you probably heard, maybe you didn't, in the EU or the EU unions, the nations, that they're saying, they're gonna lighten the strangle on the push and the mandate to be zero, absolutely zero emissions by 2035. Looks like they've sort of scaled back and they're reducing that. Like they're still pushing forward, but they look like they're going to loosen that a little bit. So it'll give a lot of these European manufacturers, which clearly are dying under this on this hill, right? I mean, the very regulators that are creating these rules are destroying those industries in Europe. I mean, Mercedes-Benz is reducing their sales, are in the toilet for the Chinese market. Chinese market doesn't want to buy these expensive Euro cars when now all of a sudden they've got the BYDs and more affordable EVs available. A lot of these expensive Euros are struggling in the big market. One of the biggest markets, China, is just what it is. It's a big market. And so if that market shrinks away, and Europe says, no, no emissions, we're starting to see it in Canada pushing hard too. What does that leave the future for these OEMs? Not very bright. So I think what's starting to happen now is regulators are saying, okay, let's pump the brakes a little bit on this. The big thing for me is not so much, well, the zero emissions thing is kind of BS anyway. But I think, these other standards like CARB standards, EPA, that are just forcing these OEMs to create smaller, tighter engines and tighter tolerances, because that's a big part of why all these engines are failing. Okay, let's see what we got. Zone says, if manufacturers realize people can't afford $30,000 cars or more anymore, do you think there will be a push to go back to the simplicity formula like they did in the early 80s? Yeah, I think the market drives the system, or not the market, but the consumer drives the market. And the unfortunate part is for you and I, that don't have all of that endless money and we're just Joe Blow. The problem is, there's still enough people that do. There's still enough people, either whether they have the money or the banks have enough money, that are willing to lend it to these guys and gals, that as long as there's enough people that don't use this and they just sit on the line and get themselves upside down on a loan for the next 8 years, as long as there's enough people willing to do that, what you're going to have is this market's going to continue doing this. But when enough people start breaking, when enough repos start hitting, which we're starting to see that climb, when we're starting to see more and more people hold on to their vehicles longer, like the average age of a vehicle on the road today, statistically, I checked it out here today, is about 13 years. That's the average. It's about 14 years for small cars. It's about 11 to 12 years for trucks. So it's rising every single year over year. It's rising. So that means people are holding on to their old cars. Less and less people are buying new, and more people are fixing what they've got or buying older used cars. So that's going to tell. There will be a tipping point, I think, all of a sudden, where there will always be buyers for new cars, but is there enough? And so that, just like with Ford, where they decided to not sell the F-150 Lightning. Why? Because the market can't bear it. That's really what it is, right? The market can't suck that one up. And so you now have the OEMs and their CEOs saying, screw it. We're going to backtrack. We're going to dodge that idea. We're going to bring more cost-effective vehicles to the market. And that's exactly what they've said. How affordable that looks, I don't know. But they are addressing the affordability angle a little bit, not because they care about whether you and I can afford it, but if we can't afford it, we're not buying it, right? So they're not selling cars. And so, yeah, they're starting to address it. We're starting to see all of the OEMs, Volkswagens and Porsches, and all of these manufacturers offering phenomenal lease arrangements, all kinds of buying options that make it flexible, because they're trying to move metal, and that's really the bottom line. But we need to start selling the Toyota Hilux here in the States. We need to get rid of that 25% chicken tax, imported 100% chicken tax. Bye-bye. Make that go away. The The only sad part is, it's again, it's the type of market. Um, we're in a market of supply and demand, and as you have that, they might call it an $18,000 Hilux, and they'll bring it to the US or Canada, and then you watch. I promise you, as I'm sitting here, by the time they say, "Well, we have to meet this standard and this standard with an airbag and a backup camera," da 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 da, these few things that have. Next thing you know, that $18,000 turns into $36,000. I promise you. You'll see that if it even comes. So watch, mark my words. Unfortunately, this is just seems to be the market. They say a lot of things, they blow a lot of rhetoric out their ass, and then this is just kind of where it goes. So again, hey, everybody, if you haven't yet joined the membership program, please do. Like I said, I do try my best to get to all the comments, not just on the membership. I answer as many of these questions as I can on the rest of the channel, but on the membership, it gives you early looks at some of these videos. It gives you an emoji, certainly gives you sort of rewards regarding that, and very importantly, you get to see what drives me. Like, life's too short to drive boring cars. I mean, why do you think I was showing you a 296, last fall? These cars just crank my engine. I love cool, fast, interesting cars. Not everything has to be exotic, but cool, unique, enthusiast cars. You've got a Miata, cool. You've got a 260Z, cool. You've got a Mustang GT, dark horse, cool. How about a Camaro ZL1 1LE? Cool. How about a McLaren 720? Oh, cool. So, if it's an enthusiast car, I'm all up in that. So, okay. So, what else we got? Any more comments, questions? So again, yeah, feel free. I mean, there's lots of benefit. There's a lot of content already in the membership arena and the community. And I strongly encourage all of you to head on over there. I mean, right now, YouTube's pretty unstable too. The worst part is it's not even for me because, I create the content and I know with time, eventually it gets served to everybody. The thing that I worry about is the way the algorithm is changing right now. I know a lot of you have reached out to me in comments and even emails I've reached out that a lot of you have maybe um, subscribed to the channel, even put on notifications a while back, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, like you haven't seen videos for a while, and then all of a sudden, wham! One of them lands in your tape and in your on the side there. One of them gets there, and then all of a sudden, you're like, "Well, I haven't seen you release a video for a long time." No, I've been nonstop. But the thing is, the algorithm now is changing the way it serves content and the way it recommends content to the viewers. So some of you have said that you're not getting all the content. So the only thing I would suggest is maybe take a look, make sure you subscribe, but also activate all your notifications so that it does trigger. And if you don't mind, watch a couple of my videos. If you like to binge watch a little bit, go back, watch some stuff. Because what that means is YouTube then gets the signal that says, oh, they're interested in this type of content. Then you'll be served that again. See, it feels like the algorithm, and I've heard a lot what's going on in the background, that the algorithm has been changed a lot to sort of accommodate, and at least from the way I see this, and from a lot of content creators, they're really building a lot to make accommodations for brand new creators, which is good, but also a lot of AI. They're opening the door for AI content, which now it's, if you don't want to hear robot sounding voices with, just endless B-roll, but no personality, that's kind of what they're starting to serve in what I've seen in some of this type of channels. I mean, there's a million of these faceless channels popping out. But if you want to continue watching a channel with personality and a true enthusiast for the cars, you're in the right place. This is where we're at. So feel free to make sure you're subscribed and you've got all notifications on. Again, don't be shy. Hit that membership tab, the button, and join the membership. There's a few different options there for you. And again, it's an opportunity to see what makes me tick. And I know a lot of you, the OGs, love those cool cars, enthusiast cars, and that's where I'm putting a lot of my content now, and also future now as I go. Some of the things are changing. The Mercedes, yes, we're having another issue here, so I'm going to share that over there. The 296, there's some issues there, and I'm going to explain what I'm dealing with there. Now, we've actually had some problems. I've got 2 codes pop up related to the Ferrari. And I want to get into some detail what that's about because people worry about, say the hybrid supercars. Well, guess what? I've got a couple of things that propped up. You get the triangle with the exclamation mark. Usually, what does that mean? Fault? Yeah. Well, I've got a couple of those on my app now for the brand. So I want to share some of that, but I'm going to do that behind the membership tab because just for those that love that type of content, if you like exotics and care about that, you'll maybe if feel free to come on over. And for the vast majority of you, you just prefer to watch, and understand my take on, the best cars or the only cars I would buy or comparison between, say, Lexus and Acura in terms of reliability. If that's the content you want, I promise to be serving that on a dish with a nice cherry on the top as we roll into 2026. But again, if you want to see a little bit more about what I'm doing, with my cars, with the problems and the issues that we're seeing with our own vehicles and the exotics and some of the luxury cars, you're definitely going to want to stop by there. But again, I want to wish all of you a wonderful Christmas. I'm not sure. I've got another popping video tomorrow, a new release coming out tomorrow. You're definitely going to want to stop by and see that one. That's a list of some of the biggest GIMP cars here that aren't selling. Nobody wants to buy them. Why? Well, find out why. You'll see why. And I share that video tomorrow. So there's some of the worst sellers right now that have been sitting around. You can probably get some good deals. So that video is coming out tomorrow. And I'm filming all the way through Christmas, New Year's. There's going to be videos on my normal routine, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. As always, 8:00 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Be sure to stop in and say hi and give me a like, thumbs up, drop a line, a comment, anything. What's your thoughts? But again, as always, thanks everybody. Have a wonderful Christmas. Have a beautiful holiday season. Stay safe, drive safe. If you're having any booze, drink and drive, and be sure to catch an Uber or a cab. Don't drive home, and always buckle up and be safe out there, everybody. Hope you all have a wonderful week, holiday season, and again, thanks again so much for all the support in 2025, and I look forward to 2026. Merry Christmas. Thank you very much, and thanks to all of you. See you later. Bye-bye.